dialogue. I'll also update the agenda with any notes that we took from today and send those out to you guys as well. Fortunately, with GoToMeeting, I will have the ability to pull off a list of attendees unless you're signed in as caller 1, 2, 3. As long as you're signed in with an email address, I can pull that down and send that out. We will definitely send it out to the full group that Shelley actually created and sent the very first invite on, and that way everybody will have access. The recording will be located on, CDP has a private YouTube station that'll be an environmental link. And you guys will be able to log in straight to that and pull this off whenever you need to. So with that, I'd like to introduce John and let him talk a little bit about how these meetings go in our, for some of our other clients, and get some feedback from him on how he thinks that this meeting should progress. John?
Well, good morning, everybody. So what we do with other states is we send out invitations to each local health department, so everybody's welcome to attend the meetings. And in some cases, for very large health departments, they may have multiple people sit in. We ask generally that maybe 2, 3 at the most from any one health department would join, though. So if you want to have multiple people, it'd be better if you could do it in a conference room, only because the number of seats in a GoToMeeting, especially in Kentucky, where we have I think it's 120 counties, the GoToMeeting maxes out at 150 attendees. So what we do is we meet each month. We go over any current work items that are during our current development release. So let me just give you a little bit of background about our development release. We work month to month. At the start of each month, we lay out the things that we are going to address during the month. Our releases end on whatever Friday is closest to the actual end of the month. And then we'll deploy those changes over that weekend, and then typically everything's available following Monday, and then that release is done and the next release will start. So as I said, we'll go over items that are on the hit list for the current month, give you a little bit of description, a little bit more, some of the details on those. If there's a lot of them, typically what we'll do is we'll just give you the list of them, ask you to look them over, and then if there's questions on them, just submit those questions to customer support. Then we go through past issues from the previous month's meeting to give you status updates on whether something was just a question that required some research, or whether it became a work item or not. We'll address those issues month to month, give you the latest update on those until that issue is considered closed. And that closed could be either that we answered the question and everybody understands, or 2, there was a work item for it and now the work item has been completed. Actually, I forgot one thing. Before we get into the issue by issue discussion, we do give you the list of the things we'll be working on during the current release, but we also give you a list of the items that were completed on the most recently completed release, so that you can verify that those things were done. And again, if you have questions on those, you can submit those to customer support and we'll give you more information. So then back to the issue by issue, we go through each one until we reach the end of the agenda, or what would be considered open items at the time. And then at that point, we turn it over to all the attendees to bring up additional issues, new items. And how we do that is we typically ask that the questions be put into the chat box of the GoToMeeting, so that we don't have a whole group of people trying to ask their questions at the same time. This way, it's the only way we can kind of control and monitor, one person talking at a time. We will, what we do is we'll have somebody, whoever's facilitating the meeting, we'll have somebody else monitor the chat box to assure that all the questions that were brought up got addressed.
Jeez.
And then before we finish the meeting, we'll just make sure if anybody has anything at that point, then they can speak up and bring up in case we missed one. So that's how the meetings go month to month. It's a good way to stay on top of things. It's not intended to be just for issues that you're having. If there's suggestions for the system that would make your jobs easier, then we'll take those into consideration too.
Kids and parents, it's not like there's extra people going to extra games, but I can avoid people.
Hey, Shelly.
I'm on it. One moment.
Thank you. Thanks. Okay, Shelly, can you hear me now?
Yeah, you should be able to talk.
Okay, good. Okay, so once we get through the open items, like I said, you can bring up not just issues that are, problems per se, but suggestions, things that, or if you're just curious if the system can do this. I did read in the survey a couple of responses that indicated that people may not be utilizing all features within the system, and they're not using it to its full potential. So that may be a good time to bring up, say, can the system do this, or how do I do this in the system? Things like that. So there's definitely an open forum discussion that anything can be asked or reviewed. And then at that point, we'll make note of the new suggestions. And, if it has to become a system change request from the state, we'll discuss it with them, and we'll add it to the list for the next month, and we'll keep you updated as to the status of those things. So now, if you're not able to make, we understand everybody's got other work to do, and these meetings typically take about anywhere from 1 to 2 hours, depending on the number of issues to be discussed and how many questions come up. And we understand that sometimes there's conflicts. So what we do is we record all the meetings, and then we'll put a link to the recording on the portal news menu. So you can always go out and listen to the meeting, as time permits, to see if there was an update to something you may were wondering about, and then outside of the meeting too, if you weren't able to make it, but you have a suggestion for the system, feel free to email that to customer support, and we can put it on the agenda for the next meeting. So what we found with the other states is it's been a very good way to stay in touch with everyone, make sure that questions are getting answered, issues are being addressed. And so for some of the other states, we've been doing it for quite a while now, and it's worked out well. Even when people aren't able to attend the meetings, they've gone back and listened to the recordings or reviewed the updated agenda, because after a meeting, the agenda will get updated right away, and then we redistribute the updated one so that you can even review that if you don't have time to actually go watch the recording. And then the agenda will get updated again prior to the next meeting with anything that's come in since then. So that's how the users meetings go. And what we'd like to do is start maybe doing that with you all, and doing it, on a monthly basis. So if there's any questions about the whole user meeting process or anything, feel free to put them into the chat box, and we can address them. So unless we see some questions pop up, Michelle, that pretty much covers the user meeting process.
Okay, Michelle, you want to go ahead and speak again? I unmuted everyone.
They need to get
Okay.
going on trying to get people.
I'm going to
Thank
ask
you,
that
Shelley.
everybody please make sure and mute your whatever you're calling in on, be it your computer or your headphones. Please put those on mute.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Shelley, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, very good. All right, Shelley, you have control of the GoToMeeting. If you could please give control to Jeff Gates, and I'd like for him to show everybody the establishment search page that he's been working on and get some feedback from them on that.
Actually, Michelle or Shelley, go ahead and give it to me. I have the link. I have it handy.
You
Okay.
should have it. I made you the presenter.
Oh, I do. Okay.
Yeah.
Shelley, are you seeing my screen?
Yes.
This is always the biggest challenge, remembering passwords. Okay, that's. Okay, so one thing we wanted to address today and show you guys one thing we can do is the establishment search page. And what I'm going to do is let me log on to the production server here. So I'm sure, as you all know, on your establishment search page, I'm just going to put in some random parameters. Your search page returns one item per page, and you have to scroll through almost like a Rolodex type thing to look for each one of these. And then you have multiple tabs to click through to get to all of the information that pertains to that single establishment. In each of our other environmental products, oh, let me back up a second. Now, the design of this was done intentionally back 10 years ago, almost. And, it was thought that this would be a good way. And you may still think that this is the better way too. And if so, we can leave it. However, what we do on our other versions of environmental health is we provide the same search filters. So if I do the exact same thing, but instead of getting one item per page, you'll get a list of establishments. And bear with me, I'm doing this on a test server, which is much, much slower than our actual production server. So now that one came already expanded, but this is the way it will come back. So I searched for all the 605 establishments in Franklin County. So it gave me this list of 182 items. So now if I'm interested in seeing, one particular establishment, if I click on the little plus sign to the left, it'll expand open and give me all the tabs that you see on the current portal page. So you have all the tabs down below, and then up above you have the demographics with the addresses, and then the options page. So that would all be contained within here. and then, and then from here you can add it. So it gives you a better view. And what this also could provide is, say you're looking for all the establishments, see if I can find, let's see, on Main Street. Now, what we've heard from some health departments in other states is this, using it for the purpose that I'm going to show you here, gets used fairly often. So now I got all the establishments on Main Street in Frankfurt, and say there was a water main break and they need to issue a boil order for all the establishments on that street. So from here, you could take this and then export this list to Excel and then use that for a mailing list. Or, if we had, when you do the exports here, what it's going to export is the information that you see on the page here. So if I go click on the Excel button, it's going to give you the 18 items that came back in that results set with the same information that was shown on that search page. So I got all the Main Street establishments. Now, what we also can do, just get rid of that. This is a basic layout. If there's information that would be very useful to be shown on this page without you having to click on expand icons. So say there's some demographic information within the establishment that we're not displaying here, but would be helpful to see in a list like this, that would be a good suggestion to make, and we can add that here. And then also this result set is sortable. Any of the headings that are underlined, you can sort it on that column. So say I wanted to see an expiration date order, I would click that. And once the page reloads, it will be in, it'll first be in ascending expiration date order. If you click it again, it'll go to descending. Now, this we threw out there just for demo purposes. We'd have to tweak this. If we were to go forward with this first box here would not automatically be expanded like this. The page will initially load like this. You would have to manually go and open or close any one of the items to look at it. So if you want to edit an establishment, then you would click this edit icon right next to the expand. And instead of doing it on that same search page, you would then have all the information on one page that you would be able to go ahead and make any changes, additions, whatever. Once you're done, click save. And again, this is just on a test server, and we haven't did this for demo purposes, so it's not fully functional yet. We didn't want to go through all that until a decision was made whether to go to this or not. So I'm just going to cancel to go back. There. Okay, and then, so then if you wanted to see inspections, one other thing we could do too, so here's your, in the inspections, this is the way this would show then. And then if you needed to add a new inspection for just this one establishment, you could either click the FDA button or the add icon. So it's just a different presentation of that search page. And, we're obviously not expecting an immediate answer right now, like, yeah, go for it. We're just throwing this out there as a suggestion. This is kind of our standard format that we have in the rest of the environmental health products. And something that we thought we'd just propose you guys to see if anybody was in favor of something like this or think this might be a better approach. Okay, I do see in the chat about email addresses. Yeah, that would be good. Yeah, so Tony, the adding the email addresses to that, yeah, that actually when I did that, that was the first thing I noticed that wasn't on there, especially in terms of like having to create mail lists. You know, that everybody's trying to make more use of emailing and try to go paperless. So, yep, that's definitely something that could be added there. Another comment I'm seeing is anything that reduces the number of screens would be wonderful. Reduce staff time. That's yes. So there's a few responses in the chat box. The few that are there are definitely in favor of this type of page. So Michelle, what would be the next steps for this to see if this is something we should move forward with this?
On. I think the next steps would be for us to scope this out, or at least give the state the kind of scope of what we've completed so far, and get their blessing in order for us to implement it.
Okay. Now, since we only had there was just a few comments in the chat box here. Would it be, you think we would need to send out a survey just to make sure that we do have, you know, a majority in favor?
I think that would be the best decision, is to make sure that most people would find it helpful, and then make sure that the state's okay with it. And then once that's okay, then we'll go ahead and implement.
Okay, one other thing I forgot to mention though was, if we do go ahead and implement this, it does not mean that that other page will go away. What we would do would be change the link on the portal menu to go to this page. If for some reason you prefer that other page, or you just want to go see something on that page for whatever reason, if you click this search edit button, it will take you back to that page. So then you could do the same search we did before, and then you're back on the, so we won't do away with this page, we'll still make it accessible. But that's how you would navigate to it. I'm seeing a couple more comments popped up that the change would be very helpful. So right now, I'm not here seeing anybody saying, no, it wouldn't be. Those who have voiced an opinion are in favor of it. Okay,
John, I just emailed you 3 questions from Kathy Fowler that came to just me.
Are you talking about in Teams, the Teams message?
I would open your email.
Oh, okay. Let's see. Shelly, you're testing my old eyes here. So in the sewage module, when you have a repair, there is no way to enter this component. Change requires an extra number tank size. It's okay. So the question on the on-site, I would have to look into that one. Let me see. Second question: since we do not have the expanded search tab, the Chen showed, is there a way to export facility names and addresses for creating labels? So
John,
Yeah.
you cut out. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. I was looking at the second question. So the export facility name and address for creating labels. You would have, right now, what you could do, we could look into a more direct way, but off of that page that I was showing, and let's see, before I do that, hey, Jeff Gates, unmute yourself, or if you're muted, but you said there's a button to go back from the search edit page back to the standard show table. Which button is that?
There is a hidden button it's hidden right now, but that's a new establishment button.
Oh, so there would be. There isn't one now.
There is something you can flip back and forth
Okay.
between the two pages.
All right. So if I go back, let me just get back to that link. Okay, so on this page here, I don't know if this is answering Kathy's question or not. If I read it right, you would export. What you could do right now is export this list to Excel and then do a mail merge from Excel into labels. Kathy, if you're on the call, Shelley, if she is, can you unmute Kathy so she can?
She's unmuted.
Kathy, am I answering your question or no? I'm talking about the second question. Well, she did ask if they used to be able to do that in Oracle. I'm assuming that was Discover. And in Discover, you would have had to create that list and then export that to Excel from there for labels. And you can do that same thing in the current ad hoc reporting tool, Splash. So that's another way to do it. And in Splash, you can add your own filters to narrow the list down to more what you need to see. So to answer your second question, Kathy, there are a couple ways to do it. If there's a more, that's certainly a feature that we could look into adding, though, a more direct, if you get the list and just say, create a list for mailing labels, or we could have a mailing label crystal report, possibly too. The third question then is there a way to add the name and the OSSTS number on the report 49 or 50? Got a balance, difficult time having the right entry only with the OSSTS number. Yeah, I don't think that should be something that is definitely doable. The third question. So Shelley, if you can make note of questions 2 and 3. The first one, I'll have to take a look at. I don't know the answer to that off the top of my head. Oh, actually, wait a minute. The first one, it's requiring actual tank number. So she's saying you have to enter bad data just to get it to accept, meaning that I'm assuming that you don't know that. If that's as simple as just making that not a required field, Kathy, yeah, we could do that as long as we have everybody's blessing on that. Speaking of that, and when we have the change control board meetings and somebody brings up a suggestion, and if it's something that people would benefit from, and or it's a feature that we put out there and say some health departments don't want to use it, but all they have to do is just, if it's an optional type feature, we can go ahead and do that. If it's a suggestion that somebody makes that's going to impact everybody in the system, though, that's typically when we'll discuss that on a change control board to make sure everybody signs off on that. And particularly in this case, then we'd have to, get the state approval for it. So this would be actually a good example. Kathy Fowler's asking about the, can you add, it says there's no way to enter, when you have a repair, there's no way to enter when there's just a component change. It requires an actual number for the tank size and some type of lateral. And then she says you have to enter bad data just to get the system to accept the entry. What I'm interpreting that is that you don't know what that information is, so you have to put something in there just to get it to pass. So we can make that a not required field. That being the case, we just have to make sure that nobody has an issue with that. And that's typically those kind of questions. Typically, nobody does object to that because if they have the information, they can put it in. They're just not being forced to put it in. Let's see, I'm trying to think if I covered everything on this particular page here. Yeah, I think I did. So that's all I had on this particular feature, Michelle.
Thanks, John. So Shelley, do we have any other questions in the chat box?
The only one that can't be seen by everyone is another one from Kathy that says, is that the search tab you're talking about adding? We don't have that now, correct? But I'm not sure at what point she asked that. But I'm assuming it's up at the top of that new page.
John, can you respond to that?
I'm trying to find it. Is that question in the chat box?
That's the only one that's not in the chat box. There are quite a few others that are filing in, quite a few from Tony. I'm keeping log of them, but if you could read them.
I see Tony's. Read Kathy's again, the one I don't see.
Is that the search tab you were talking about adding? We don't have that now, correct?
That's correct. What I'm showing right now for the establishments is only on our test server. We went ahead and did it so that we could show it to everybody.
Post down some of the best things to prevent the spread of the virus. People.
So if we get to go ahead, then we'll put this out on production. But we still have some work to do to it, though. It's not fully functional. We know that there's a couple bugs in it. We just wanted to get it out there so we could show. Let me look through some of the other things. Okay, so in response to Kathy's first question, somebody else commented, Tony said, yes, when you do repair permits, you have to put in a lot of bogus information just to get it done. Sometimes there's certainly components, or sometimes there's only certain components. So it sounds like what we need to do is to reduce the number of required fields there so that bogus information is not being put in, because you definitely don't want to put in something that isn't valid just to get past the screen. So we'll take a look at that. A separate entry place for repairs would solve both problems. You know, that may be a good point, because I'm thinking in one of our other states, repairs on septics actually have its own little section on the, I think it's on the applications. And so that section for the repairs has its own set of criteria. And that would, so if you're not doing a repair, you don't have to fill any of that information out. That we can look at that. Okay. Let's see, then we had another question. Could you make the report similar to clinic billing labels so that we can print to the Zebra printer? Not being familiar with what specific labels are being used for those, I can say we can look into that. If it's a fairly standard label, I know the most common one is like the Avery 5610s or something like that. Shelly, do you guys have one of those Zebra printers in the office down there?
I'm not sure. I don't know.
I tell you,
John, yes, we have some Zebra printers back in networking.
okay, so if we can find out what the label is that gets put into those, sure. We can take a look at that. Okay, let me see here. Okay, we have one question that says, it's not, Ann asks, her question is not related to the screen. She just wants to know how many questions are we allowed to ask during this meeting. Well, we have, Michelle, what did we block off till, we blocked this off for 2 hours?
Till 11:30 Eastern time, John.
Okay,
so I told Angie, please feel free to go ahead and ask whatever questions she has, and then as we go through, if in the event we can't answer them all, or if we don't cover them all, those will be things that will be included on the FAQ, along with the answers that we get from you and Marvin and the rest of the development team.
Yeah, Shelly, I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but when you end the go-to meeting, it generates a chat log of any comments that were put in there. Have you ever used one of those?
No, I've just been copying and pasting them.
Okay, yeah, well, just to be on the safe side, make sure it's not like a feature we have to turn on and off. Anytime I've hosted a go-to meeting, I end up with it gives you a chat log. I forget what folder it puts it in locally on your machine, but actually it might just be,
I'm keeping a record of them, so if it doesn't, I'll have them all.
Okay, well, just so you know, you'll get something. Let me see if I can find a good example.
We can do it.
It just puts right into my documents folder. It creates it automatically. And it just lists all the questions and replies. So, okay, so the next question I see in the chat box is a mobile question. So I'm going to ask Mr. Barlow to take the floor here. Marvin, I see you're in a go-to meeting. Oh, there you go.
I'm here. I'm here.
Okay.
Let's get to the bottom. I was getting the bottom of the chat list.
It's the question from Melanie. If you're not seeing it, what it says is for mobile EH, can core items on immediate follow-ups self-populate?
On the food forms, we just in our last release that we did on the 2.0.2.8 version, we did implement, and it's an option. And there is a one-time fee associated with that, where that for the food, it will auto-populate all your required items 1 through 30 with as in. And then after that, you can go in and change that. If they're out or NA or NO, you can change that. So that option was done. Now, if you're talking about a follow-up, or is the question that you want on the follow-up for those to auto-populate to in, or do you want those to populate as what the original inspection was done for the follow-up? So not sure exactly which way that question probably did not answer the question itself. But that if I could find out that answer, or that on the follow-up, how do you want it to populate those? Did anybody responding to that?
Most people are muted right now.
Okay.
Now everybody should be unmuted.
And while I'm waiting on that response, I see that Melanie Fish also asked for on mobile, can we open more than one inspection at a time? As far as filling out an inspection, you can only do one inspection at a time. As far as filling that out, you do have the ability to look at prior inspections, which actually creates a PDF. From that PDF, you can have multiple PDFs up at a time.
Okay. What actually, I think, Shelley, there's a lot of people that are in the meeting, but they don't have microphones. So they're not able to speak up. So we're going to have to rely on the chat box even more so. So I'm assuming Marvin answered that question. The next one I see in the chat box was just a comment from Tony, just agreeing that repairs are entirely different beasts. So maybe a separate spot would be good for that. We'll definitely take a look at that. However, this next one, Michelle, I'm going to ask that you address this one.
Hey, John, just one moment. It looked like Amy Ferguson did come back with a reply on the follow-up. She said, I would like to think that she would want it populated with the original data entry from the original inspection. That is something we can look into and see about doing that on a follow-up.
Okay.
Can you hear me, Marvin?
Yes.
I agree with you on the auto-populate on the follow-up. If we could just auto-populate the original inspection, and then we can go back and change what the establishment made corrections on. It would save us a lot of time.
Okay. And on that follow-up, I know there's two different types of follow-ups. You have an immediate follow-up, which, you do immediately what, you've done your regular inspection, then you follow that up immediately with that. That's one type of follow-up. And that one probably would be easier, would be doable. What about the original one that was done on a Monday? Then you go do the follow-up on a Friday. I'm just using as an example. Would you want those to follow up also?
I wouldn't be as much concerned about that. On an immediate follow-up, it would save us a lot of time if you could do that.
Okay, gotcha. The immediate one would be much easier to do than a one that was done prior in the past.
Right. Yeah, the immediate one would be what would be really helpful to us.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification on that. And hopefully that's the same thing that Amy was asking also.
Okay, we good to go on to the next one, Marvin?
Yes. Thank you, John.
Okay, Michelle, a comment from Franklin County came up, says, I thought KDPH was going to do away with the on-site module of EMIS. Do you have any?
I saw that. No, I have not. I have not gotten any information on that. That's not been anything that that has been discussed with the state and CDP. If you know something that I don't, feel free to fill me in. But at this point, that has not been discussed with CDP.
Okay, so the next one, Marvin, you answer. Okay, and then Greg said zebra printers are continuous feed 4x1. Hey, Greg, do you happen to have a label number on those? If you happen to have that, Greg, just go ahead and throw it into the chat box. We'll move on. The big question, I don't know, does anybody know if the zebra printers, are they using, will they take just do you use Avery brand labels? Or are they special?
They're special. They're actually on a roll that is loaded into the zebra.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. I think we probably will just, it's really probably going to just come down to the size. We'll just have to find a size that matches up with it. But if they're doing it on the clinic side, I don't see why we can't do it on the environmental side. Okay, so next one.
One of the questions, John, was from Rhonda Walton. She said that they had to drop off the call, but she wanted to make sure that we provided a link to the private YouTube station. And yes, we will be providing that to all of you all.
Yeah. Okay. Was that in response to Jennifer's message? She said
I'm not certain.
She said we really need to move forward with this meeting. Most of us have Corona, the COVID response to deal with today. Okay. Question about the zebra printer, was that so we can print mailing labels? Yes. The questions about the zebra printer were specific to mailing labels. That was from Sharon. Melanie, that would populate from the original inspection. Marvin already addressed that. Amy's question, Marvin addressed that. Tony says on either mobile or regular, a way to do simultaneous food and retail for 607 inspections. Doing them separately is a nightmare. Marvin?
When we did change to the new FDA food form, each one of those are separate, and we programmed it that way. It would be very difficult to put both of those together on the same page at the same time. Ultimately, I mean, the state did make the state did not do away with the one form for the 607. So, and that's why they are treated separately on the inspection as you're doing that. I can look into it, but it'd be pretty difficult. And then you have, on a page, instead of having 58 line items, you would have 58 times 2, you would have 116 line items to address that for your in-outs, your NAs and NOs. And that could, from a speed standpoint, that could take some time of loading all those up all at once. Once again, we can take a look to see how that would work, but as of right now, I think it would add quite a bit of complexity to what we're doing.
And that too, Marvin, since that would change the form, you said it would go out to 100 and would you say like 116 items?
Yeah, there's 58 line
Right.
items.
Okay.
So
so there's 58 for each one.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you would have 58 for your food, and you have 58 for your
Right.
retail, and they want to be able to mark those as they're going down.
One suggestion I would make, and this is just so that everybody can kind of take this into consideration, because again, this would impact everybody. So we'd have to, anybody who's using mobile would have to voice their either agreement or objections. But what if for the 58 line items, you only showed them one time, you only leave it at the 58, but you have an option for out of compliance to be, is it out of compliance for the 607, the 610, or both?
Well, but
That
at the
way
same time, the 607, or your retail could be in, and your food could be out.
Right. I know, that's what I was saying. When you go to mark, if it's out of compliance, you would have to pick, is it out of compliance on the 607, out of compliance on the 610, or is it out of compliance on both? That way you could list the 58 questions just one time. Just throwing it out there for something, something to think about.
It's something to think about. But that is an option that I originally had not thought about doing it in that way. So
Yeah, I mean, 116 items, that'd be a lot. I mean, 58's a long list. Okay, so next question from Ryan is, can you pull up previous inspections to view past violations? Are you referring to in mobile or in EMIS? In EMIS, definitely.
Yeah, and you can in mobile also. There's and I don't remember the exact button, but on 3 or 4 of the different pages, there's a place there called previous history, and as long as you're downloading and refreshing your data on a regular basis, the receipt file, then you would be able to, on the prior inspections, there's a display that a grid view of each one of those inspections that does have the violation numbers off to the right, like 10, 12, 15, so on and so forth. But there's also a PDF history you can click on, and it will, when you double click on that, you can click on that and it will bring up a PDF of the original form. So yes, you can view previous inspections from that on mobile.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Let's see. So the next question is, in the past, my support person did have access to any certified installer, but now she has to contact the state to get information if he is one out of my county. Could that be changed back as before? I'm assuming that's an EMIS question, and I may have to, I'll have to look into that one. Shelley, if you can make note of that one, I don't know offhand. I'd have to go back and check to see first what the history of change was, if we can identify when that changed and why it changed. That would give us some insight as to, whether we can change it back or not. But definitely something we'll look at. So that would be a good item to go on the agenda for the next call, or hopefully we'll answer it before then. Marvin, I don't know if you saw, there's another comment that in your discussion about mobile with the follow-ups, Melanie said, let's start with immediate follow-ups.
Yes, I still see that, and that goes back to the bringing in the data from the regular inspection. So I think we had already addressed that one.
Okay. All right, next question was, in the on-site search property where you go in and enter the data, if you make a mistake, looks like that message got cut off. This was from Lisa and Jessamine, on on-site, the search/property where you go in and enter the data, if you make a mistake and then it got cut off. Lisa, I don't know if it sounded like maybe you didn't get all of them a question in there or not. Let me see if there was a.
Sorry, our secretary was writing a question about entering on site. She had to go answer the phone, but it was about basically not being able to delete. She wanted to know if there was a way to delete if she went back in and made a mistake. I think that was kind of the gist of it. I can have her re-enter it when she comes back in.
Now, do you know if she's like wanting to delete an entire record or just some, a piece of information that was entered?
Well, it had to do with going back in, with putting like the permit number back in there, I think. And like maybe if you made a mistake, I guess the entry, if you have two records in there.
The way we handle that, and this is across the board and in all our environmental systems, is we really shy away from true delete options because of, there is no recycle bin. So if you go in and you physically delete a record and it's gone, it's gone. So if somebody goes in and selects the wrong one and deletes it, there's no way to get that back. So what we do is we give you the option to always flag a record as deleted. Any record, and this applies to inspections, accounts receivable, complaints, everything. Anything that's flagged as deleted will not get included in reports, and typically won't even show up in your search pages unless you change the status to either search for deleted entries or all. That way, it's not affecting your reporting, any statistics or anything like that, and you always have the ability to reactivate the record if it was done by mistake. However, one thing we could look at would be give a delete function, but put it at only at an admin level, and maybe let certain people have the ability, because there's been plenty cases, and this is nothing unique to Kentucky local health departments. This is everybody. There's cases where they say, no, that record's got to be gone. It's just we don't want it in the list. We don't want to see it anywhere. And so typically the way we're doing those now is they submit the request for it to be deleted, and we do we'll get that deleted overnight using a database update that we'll handle behind the scenes.
Okay.
But in a few rare cases, like at a very top level admin level, we could provide like a delete button. So that's something that we could definitely look into.
Okay. Yeah, I think she can call in now to have it deleted.
Yeah, that's what everybody does. They generally send it to customer support. They either call or email, and in those cases that ends up on my desk, and then I usually get them handled. I try to get them same day as the request comes in, but it's usually within a day or so that we'll get that actual record deleted. This is a good example. These are exactly the kind of questions that this phone call is for, though, so that we can get this on a list of requests and suggestions and start tracking these month to month. So this is really good so far. Next question, is there a report that can be run with establishment information along with the email addresses? This would be helpful during a mass email during an emergency. If we don't have one in Portal now, I would be surprised. If not, again, that's definitely something that we could take a look at. Let me, that would just be, you know what, actually, we probably have some reports that have information, but they also probably have a lot of other information that you don't need. this would be a very easy report to do in Splash, which you would then export out to Excel. And if you're not familiar with our Splash, it's the ad hoc reporting tool. We could set one up and share it with everybody that you would just have to go in and run the report. You know, we could put some basic filters in there for, well, actually, you're talking about email addresses, not for mass email. What we could, well, that would be an easy report too. We just list all the establishments and their email addresses, and then you could just cut and paste the email addresses right into to the email itself. That's something
John,
we can set. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, it's Michelle. I think the the only issue may be that not everyone has access to Splash, and so that might curtail some people. I wonder if it's something that we could put into our Crystal reports that everyone has access to and could just pull it up and run it.
We could. Another way to do that would be to have just an email export right off the establishment page. So that way you could take advantage of all the search filters that are on the page itself. So going back to like the new establishment search page that we were showing, if I'm on here, and that was actually one of the questions when we first showed this. I forget who said it. I don't know if it was Tony or not, but somebody said, would you include the email addresses on here? And that's something that we've already said, yeah, we would definitely put them on this page. If we had that, then you could export this list right from Excel right here. You wouldn't even need a Crystal report. And then you could cut and paste the email column because it would show up as a separate column. Now I know on the page here, like you'll see address 1, address 2, and then city, state, zip. They're on top of each other, so 3 different rows, but all in one column. When you go out to Excel, they'll be in separate columns. So if we had the email show up, say it was underneath the phone number, when we exported this, you could then just take the column that has the email addresses and cut and paste all those addresses into your email and send it out. So probably, Michelle,
I think that would be the best way.
Yeah.
Now here's the other caveat. It's going to require that that the environmentalists are obtaining the email addresses for the individual establishments. Right. So if you don't have an email address on, that listed, then obviously it's not going to populate on this report.
Well, yeah, the field won't, right? But what they can do, depending on how experienced of an Excel user you are, what you can do. Did I save that? No, I did not. Let me export these 18 items here real quick again. So once you get your list in Excel, so let's say email address was on here. If you take this, you do 2 real easy things. Highlight your data and just format as a table, and you can pick any format at all. I'll just pick any one random one. And let's say this address 1, say this was the actual email address. Then you could click and sort it just by one click. So it would put all the ones that had email addresses first and all your ones that didn't at blank. So then you could just say, all right, I want those email addresses, copy it and paste those right into an email. So it's just a couple features in Excel that you would take advantage of. I'm trying to think if there's
where on the environmental within an establishment, where is click edit record. Where can they enter the email address? Is it?
They can put as many email
as
addresses
many as they want.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, and they put it right there. All right, very good. I couldn't remember where that was located. All right, we are coming to the bottom of the hour. We've only got 14 minutes left on this session, so let's try to get through as many of these next questions as we can.
All right, the next one in there was from Rhonda that they were having to leave, asking about the YouTube thing. Got that one. Jennifer from Franklin was signing off, saying thank you.
Let's move on
Greg
down to Anne. Anne has 4 questions. It looks like the rest are just dealing with the zebra printer.
Okay, yeah, Greg gave the information for the labels. And when I make a mistake to a payment, for instance, say entered the wrong check number or need to enter the correct approval code numbers, can I fix it without backing out the payment? The way it's set up right now, no. You'd have to actually reverse the payment and re-enter it. So I would think in terms of that, because that affects cash drawers and report 50s, that I would assume would definitely require some state approval to do that. And also keep in mind, the reason we do that is so that you can track within the accounts receivable, the transactions shows you every action item that was taken on there. So if you went in and just modified a record, we'd have to try to indicate somehow that that record was changed so that we maintain that level of auditing. So right now, I personally wouldn't recommend that change, but if everybody's in agreement and the state gives approval for it, we could certainly look into it. Number 2, if I need to go back to an existing cash drawer sheet, say the next day to make changes and I want to reprint that particular cash drawer sheet, why doesn't the correction show up on the sheet? All the changes that you make are specific to user by day. I don't have
So
an
it would
answer.
show on the current cash drawer, it would show on her cash
Correct.
drawer, say for today, that she
Correct.
made a change or an update. But the cash drawer for the date that the cash was entered is
Exactly.
going to stay stagnant, in that
Yes.
you need to be able to go back to that day and say, okay, on Tuesday I had entered $560, and then on Wednesday I went in and backed it out. So Tuesdays needs to stay as it was, so that in the event you needed to audit it, you could go back and look at it from a page to page basis.
All right, number 3, can a column heading report areas be added and show up on the cash drawer after it has been printed out? Let's see here. Let's see. Can a column heading report areas be added and show up on the cash drawer? So I'm assuming that would be in reference to each particular line that shows up on here, just show what program it was for. If that's
Yeah, I
the
think
case,
she wants to show, say for instance, she took cash for an on-site that she did inspections, sewage, and then she had establishment renewals and whatever. Is there a spot on here where you could just, put a reporting area? So just 6076, not, spell
right,
it
I just
out.
want to make sure she wasn't referring to like up in the header. So you're talking about on the detail.
That's my assumption.
Yeah, I don't see why not.
I know we've got a lot of detail on here. What's the space limitation for entering in another row?
I'm not worried about the space. We can always reduce fonts slightly, whatever. But yeah, I mean, I don't see why not. I think that would be a good suggestion to put on a list that we could add to there. And see, now that's something that, you know, it's a report. It's not affecting any business functionality. It's just giving you some additional information. So unless somebody had a strong objection to that, I would say we would probably go ahead and do that.
You're cutting out a bit, John. But yes, I understand what you're saying. Probably what I will do is I will take the list of suggestions and just pass it by the state and make sure that they're okay with that.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's pretty much going to be our standard process for everything, isn't it?
That is correct.
Okay. Number 4, can you fix the units box on the request screen so I can enter the number of items instead of selecting the reporting area several times? I have to actually look at that one. I'm not sure. Okay. Oh, and the units. On this one, Ann, are you talking about on a request fee? I think I might be on the wrong page here.
At the end, Ann did say, yes, I'm referring to request fee, John.
Okay. Let's see. So I'm assuming, can you fix the units box on the requesting so I can enter the number of items? Well, you know what? Oh, that it depends on the charge itself. So like in this case here, I selected this miscellaneous fee. If, okay, I know what the question is now. Let me cancel out of this.
So what John did, Ann, is he went to the tables, and tables is something that, you know, especially if you're an admin, you should have access to. And within the tables, you can go in and create additional fees and specific transaction types or service types. And within that, you can allow for units to be added. So
Yes.
John, that's what John's showing you right now.
So if you look here, the one that I selected when I was doing and when I was trying to show that was this miscellaneous fee, and it's set up for a fixed amount of $120. It does not have a unit amount. If I was to put in a unit amount of, let's say, 50 cents, and let's say the max they can have is 100. Once I save that, if I go back into request fee now, here. I was getting this before. What?
Refresh your page since you added that at the top.
Can I ask Marvin a question while you're all trying to figure this out?
Absolutely, go right ahead.
Hey Marvin, is there any way we can get the signature box to come up after the print preview? Because I've had a lot of establishments really not want to sign something that they've not seen.
Yeah, it's just the order that we bring those in.
Yeah, I've actually had some people really do not want to sign that, something that they've not, that they've not looked at.
Yeah. Yeah, we could do that. I don't see why. We might just have to do one other thing, because that's one thing I check from a validation rule standpoint to see if that PDF exists, which implies that you have reviewed it. Yeah, could look at that flow of that.
Mark, people right, please. Mark, people right.
So yes, I think is something we could look at to doing, changing that flow, that you could do a print before you did before signatures was required.
Okay, appreciate
We're
it.
looking at that, and we'll let you know later on that, Heath. Okay.
Thanks, Marvin.
All right, you all can see John's screen where when he went and added those units on the service fee page in the tables, it allows you, that basically opens that box up and allows you the opportunity to enter units. But that would be something that's at your all's control and discretion, and you have to add that or edit that within the table. Guys, we are at 11:28, and I still have quite a few more questions, comments, suggestions. I think what we're going to do here is stop at this point and get all of the answers to your questions that you've listed in the chat window, and put all of those on the FAQ sheet that I send out. Additionally, if you have more questions, something that you think of later or that you have a comment on, please feel free to email us at customer support, and just in your subject line, put something about the CCP call, and that we're doing some, had some questions or some additional comments or suggestions regarding the environmental systems. And I will make sure that those get addressed and added to that document.
And back on the very end of that, your last question, yes, that update will be your grades will be included in the next update.
Thank you.
Thanks, you guys, so much. And our next call is scheduled for the 15th of April. We'll send you out a GoToMeeting invite along with an agenda at that time. We really appreciate all of y'all's participation.
Yes.
Yes, very much so. Thanks everybody for attending today.
Thanks, everybody.